All right, we are here with Phil DeCarlo of Posh Properties. Phil, how you doing?
Excellent. How are you, Nick? Thanks for having
Um,
me.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad that we were able to get together and put some stuff together, try to get some good content out to the people and our clients and other people alike. So, just
Absolutely.
wanted to chat quick and give me a little bit about your background, yourself. Posh Properties, Phil DeCarlo. Obviously, you're known as Phil in the Fedora. So, give us a little background about yourself, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. So, probably the least fact that most people know about me is I am licensed as a real estate broker in 3 states. Although
Ah,
the majority of my business today is in Florida, where I reside. However, I am licensed as a broker in New York State and also in New Jersey too.
good to know.
And I think when we first relocated to Florida, that was a bit of an asset for me because I was doing a lot of relocation work. So people that wanted to make that move.
Yes, the big
Today,
move.
it was a great move. It was a great move. Being in Florida was always a dream of ours. And the fact that we could combine living in Florida and also combine my passion of being in real estate, it's pretty much been a home run. So
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you found a place here in Florida. I'm a fellow New Yorker myself. Came down a little bit before you, but we share the sentiment that we're happy to be here in Florida. Happy that people are moving here and continuing to move here.
absolutely. Today, I do a little bit less of relocation work, but I still have a number of customers that want to work directly with me. And when the time is right, they want me to sell their house in either New York or New Jersey and then make the relocation here to Florida. So,
Yeah, it's definitely good to have both. And like as you mentioned, clients that are when they're ready to head down here, not only can you help them find a spot here in Florida, but you can sell their house in New York or New Jersey.
yep, exactly. So,
Perfect. So I got a few things that I want to chat with you about today. The first one that we'll go through will be the market updates. And,
yeah.
in what is the crazy market, seller market, buyer market, neutral market, kind of discuss, your thoughts on the current market that we're in today here in February of 2024.
The market is still strong, but interestingly enough, when I look at, let's say, a basis of comparison to last year around this time, I think there was still potentially a greater sense of urgency on the part of buyers than
Hmm.
there is today. I feel a little less urgency, and I think there is something to do with obviously the rates, right?
Of
Someone is
course.
depending upon having to purchase and get a loan. When we started 2023, the rates were lower. And as we moved through 2023, the rates got very high in comparison to where we were for the last 2 years, right? So,
Relatively, right.
right? It
Exactly.
was like that
Yeah.
big shock of,
We were
what
spoiled for
happened.
a while for sure.
We definitely, our customers were definitely spoiled for a while. So I'm starting to get the sense, though, that the market is becoming normalized, meaning we're getting to a more of a balance in the market, and that we're not in that crazy scenario where if you didn't buy it today, it might not be there tomorrow. So there was this urgency that was on the part of everyone that you either put up or it was gone, right?
Yeah,
And
literally overnight sometimes.
literally overnight. My saying was, if you have to sleep on it, you might not sleep in it, right?
I like that.
So,
I think that a lot of people probably prescribed that because that time was crazy. I think that a lot of buyers who were saw what friends and family, were able to buy a couple years ago and that weren't ready for whatever reason, they started to
right,
see the rates climb up and affordability definitely became an issue, with
right,
wages not keeping up with the interest rates and the home appreciation and home values. It was very difficult for a lot of people and families to purchase especially in a market like ours in South Florida, where real estate is expensive. The cost of living is fairly higher than it is in a lot of other places in the country. And, as rates have begun to come down here towards the end of last year and in the beginning of this year, we're definitely seeing an influx in applications, pre-approvals, clients starting to come back out and really making that consideration. There's a lot of FOMO. They don't want to be the people that said, oh, I wish I bought 2-3 years ago. They don't want to be those people now. So I'm starting to see a lot of that on my end. I know that as far as listings go, you have a couple listings. Tell us a little bit about, some of the listings that you have currently.
Yeah, sure. But just to kind of close that out, I am starting now. We're in February. January was a little quiet, but I'm starting to see people realize that if they want to make that move, now is starting to be the time, because I have a feeling that and even though the Fed didn't make any adjustment to the rate this week, I have a feeling that people are starting to sense that there is going to be a rate or several rate adjustments. And I think they're now more in the planning mode, because they want to be ahead of that wave, because once the rates start to come down, there's going to be a big swell of people who've been sitting on the sidelines jumping in. So what I'm coaching my customers on is, let's be in front of it. And that if we find the right property, now's the time to make that move. Otherwise, you might miss out, or there might be a high level of demand if you wait. And I think
I
that's
absolutely
starting
agree.
to resonate.
Yeah, I mean, I've always tried to give an analogy of people, picture yourself in a room with 100 people, right? And the doorway to get to the next room is smaller, and there's only, say, 80 seats in the next room. And as the door is small and a couple people at a time go through, everyone finds a seat. It's not a big deal, right? But as the rates lower and affordability opens, that door in between those two rooms open. And then all of a sudden, you got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 people looking for 80 seats. Yeah. And sometimes it's better to get there earlier and, find a seat and be comfortable, to use that analogy, to find a home. And sometimes it just doesn't happen for people. So I'm in a complete agreement with you. Get out ahead of things. Be early. You'd rather be early and take your time and bite it and find the right place than you would to be late in this situation. So, I'm glad to hear that you're seeing somewhat similar things in your end. And, I'm glad that we did that little chat there on the market. So let's move on to your listings. Phil, I know that you've got a couple that I've been to this week and in past. So tell me a little bit about the listings that you have currently.
Yeah, so I have a great property down in Delray Beach, a couple of properties in Delray Beach. One significant one that is priced just above $6 million, and it's been a little quiet, but it's a very unique home in that it offers the buyer an opportunity to not only live in the home themselves, however, they can also rent it out on a short-term or a long-term basis. Yeah. And I think given the proximity to the beach and proximity to Atlantic Avenue, makes the home quite unique. It's also a very large home. It's over 3,800 square feet. And when you add in all the outdoor space, we're talking close to 6,000 square feet of property.
Yeah, it's a big one.
It's a big home. I think in that market where you're the 4 to 6 million type range, those buyers are going to be a little bit more picky about what they want as well.
Sure.
So it's just really finding the right buyer for that property who can see the potential, not just for themselves to be able to enjoy being in the property, but also how they would rent the property when they're not there. So it's just finding the right buyer.
Yeah, that's a great property that you have down there. I've been there a few times, with you, and it's definitely something that's a unique property in that area. It's laid out very cool. There's a lot of outdoor spaces. There's a lot of different balconies and the views of Atlantic or the ocean. There's a lot going on there, and it's a really, really great property. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one in Delray and one up in Jupiter.
Right. So I have another listing in Delray Beach in a 55 and older community. Also a really nice property, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. I think it's priced, well, considering there are other couple of other properties in the development. So we're sort of like right in the middle of what the
Mm-hmm.
other properties are priced at. And we're starting to see some activity for that now as well.
Great.
Again, January was a little quieter, but I'm starting to see an increase in terms of requests for showings. And that's encouraging because January, and maybe it was weather and people were not down because of, our market in the Delray Beach area, as well as other places in South Florida, is a big market of people coming from out of town. In January, the weather was not great, as you know.
Yeah, it wasn't our normal weather.
And I think we're starting to see that turn around, and we're starting to see the weather turn out to be better and people coming out.
For
Same thing
sure.
in my listing in Jupiter, which is pretty close to the Jupiter beaches. We're starting to see a turnaround. Had a brokers open yesterday, and I think we had about 20 agents or so come through the property. And everybody loved it. They think it's a great property. It's priced extremely well. It's
Yes.
in nice development. It's near the golf course. It's got a great community, and you're centrally located to 10 minutes to the beaches, yet you're also within a stone's throw to shopping, restaurants, and if you want to go to a bigger nightlife, you're 15 minutes to downtown West Palm. So it's
Yeah.
suited in an ideal, a quiet location, but if you want more activity, you have the option to be in more activity in a short amount of time.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I think that's really great and unique, about the Delray Beach and Jupiter area
Right.
is you can be quiet, you could be near a golf course. In fact, the Jupiter one, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, your Florida room overlooks one of the golf
It
courses. You can
does.
see it,
Actually, it does overlook
and
the Jupiter golf
yeah,
course,
and
which
that's
is kind of
so
fun.
cool about those is, like
Yeah.
you said, if you want to go to the beach, you're 10-ish minutes. If you want restaurants, if you can't find one, I don't know what you're doing, because they're pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
And then if you want downtown, nightlife stuff, West Palm's close, Atlantic Avenue is great. So there's definitely a lot of good accessibility, and those two properties, I'm sure will go sooner than later. As things improve on our
Yeah.
end in the mortgage world. I think we've had a lot of good things come in. Insurance companies are starting to come back. Rates are starting to come down. And I think that it'll be good for everybody, both in your world and in mine. So,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
anything else you want to add to that stuff?
I think I think the buyers are coming out too. Like for
Yeah,
example,
definitely.
what I had been seeing in terms of maybe some of the challenges with buyers, again, as we talked about earlier, has to do with rates. But I think rates now are starting to settle down, and the advice I would give to my buyers is to be prepared, right? And how they prepared. Um, a first important step is making sure that they have their financial house in order, right? So
Agreed.
whether they're deciding that they're going to, finance, or whether they're deciding that they're going to pay in cash, they still have to be prepared one way or the other in order to make that financial commitment, right? It's
Absolutely.
great to go look at houses, but one of the things that I stress is always just to be ready. And if you are financing, don't take on any unnecessary debt to reduce your affordability options, right? Um,
100%.
You
There's
guys
a
as
lot of things
lenders
that
do
go in
not
there.
like
Yeah.
you don't like when people
As you
go
can
out and buy
imagine,
cars and
I love to hear
furniture.
all that. I love that from
3 days
your
before
end
they've got to
because
close, and now they
yeah,
can't
it's
afford it. So,
and I
silly
always
things
make
like
the
that.
joke of don't buy a boat, don't buy a car, don't buy whatever. But
Right.
I've seen it. I've seen people do it. I've seen people, no matter how many times you tell them to not do certain things, sometimes they do, and trying to keep them educated, try to keep them ready to go so that when you are out there with your client, that you're armed with a pre-approval, from a mortgage loan officer, and that, guys, there's nothing worse than finding a place and then needing something right away, right? And
Right.
it's not conducive to you to make an offer. I can't tell you how many times on Friday nights, Saturday morning, Sunday nights, right? They always seem to come in and they find places. I mean, the reality is a lot of people are shopping for homes on the weekend.
Sure.
And, we really try to make ourselves available 24/7 and making sure that we're there on a Friday night, or if it's a Saturday or Sunday, if we're able to, pre-approve somebody, we're always making sure that our clients and our, the people that we're working with, as far as our partners in the real estate side, you guys know exactly what's going on. And for us to work as a team, me in the financial and your guys on the property side, having those conversations ahead of time, right? So, whether it's an HOA or whether it's a certain community or whether, it's an investment property, and double checking on things,
Right.
is it rentable in the first year, or things like that we want to make sure that we know. So you guys are doing that, to definitely do that. And I know that we discussed some challenges, for buyers and sellers, and you touched a little bit about advice for buyers. What advice do you have for sellers right now? Because for a while, as the rates were high, sellers were making concessions, sellers were dropping their prices, sellers were having to do certain things because they were no longer in the driver's seat. I don't know that we're in a buyer's market yet. I think we're neutral at best. But what is, advice do you have for sellers, even specifically the listings you have, but sellers in general that may be looking to list their homes though?
Yeah. I mean, technically, I think we're still in a seller's market. We have,
Mm-hmm.
when I look at Florida as a whole, we have about a 3-month window of inventory. And if I pick a couple of cities in and around Jupiter as an example,
Right.
Our inventory in December was, for single family homes, was like 2.7 months. Now we're 3.3 months. But when I look at December of 2022 versus December of 2023, there were actually more homes on the market in December 22 than they were in December of 2023. But I'm starting to see the uptick on that. And remember, rates were more favorable a year ago at this time,
Sure.
roughly, before they
Yep.
really went up. But my advice to sellers is, we can test the market, especially if they have a specific number that they want to get to in terms of what they think the home is worth. And we can come equipped with every form of CMA, past sales, all of that information.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, as I tell my sellers, I don't set the price, you don't set the price, the market sets the price. So
Absolutely.
I'm always willing to try. Okay. Obviously, my goal when I'm working with a seller is to try to get their home sold for the highest possible price with the least amount of aggravation, right?
Absolutely.
And the highest offer is not always the best offer, because you have to look at the terms of whatever is being offered as well, right?
For sure. I agree there big time.
But at the end of the day, we don't set that price. The market's going to tell us. And I can pretty well tell within a couple of weeks of a home being on the market, the level of activity and how well we have priced it.
Yeah. Gives you a good gauge of kind of, like you said, where the market's at, because, you obviously, you're doing your CMAs, you're checking out things in the area, but, a home is end up going to be worth what somebody's willing to pay for it, whether it's cash, whether it's financed or whatever. That's definitely something that, I know that you do your due diligence to make sure that you're, again, getting the highest price for the least amount of headache for your sellers. But you mentioned, offers, and highest isn't always best, and I know that highest and best kind of gets thrown out there as sometimes as some lingo, but again, loan approval periods, inspection periods, sometimes closing, with a 60-day post occupancy might be favorable to a seller, right? Because if they get an offer that maybe, hey, this is the offer, but we just moved here from Connecticut and my kids have to start school and we have to be in this house in 30 days, but the people have to move out and they need some time because they're also relocating, that may not be conducive for the sellers. So really looking at all aspects of the offer, I think is kind of what you were touching on. And it's just such an important thing, from your perspective as the listing agent.
Yeah, I think when we were in kind of the crazy period in 2021 and 2022, or maybe part of 2023, buyers were willing to throw whatever they could to get the seller's attention, right?
Yep.
And the sellers mostly focused on the number, what the price was.
Yeah.
But
big time.
As we're getting into a more normalized market, price could be a part of it. However, the terms of the offer could be just as important. And to your point, if someone that's selling needs a post occupancy and one buyer is willing to give the owner post occupancy, might be a better offer than another offer that's higher but doesn't give them the post occupancy that they need. Now they have to find another place, so it could cost them more money in the long run. So
100%.
It really looking at everything, in a more collective way, and understanding the strategy of what the seller is really looking for, and then combining that with what the buyer is offering in order to, make that work for both parties.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that for me, some takeaways from today is, the market's very fluid. We need to be up on our stuff, both in my realm and in your realm, to make sure we're serving our customers and clients, to the best of our ability, and be ever changing with the market, which is ever changing, and being ready and able to pivot and make changes, as quick as we can, so we can make sure that we're there, for our clients. Had a good chat with you today. I was glad that you were able to come on and we could kind of discuss some things. Any last notes that you want to leave, Phil?
I think the market's going to get a little bit better this year. I have a sense that people are used to the slightly higher rate. When you look at what that rate is today compared to what it was a period of time ago, it is a somewhat of a normal rate. I think where people get a little sideways on it is that the average price of a home today is higher than, let's say, 20 years ago. So if the rates,
right,
all things equal, a 6% rate versus a 6% rate, where people sort of get sideways is, well, 6% on buying a $400,000 home versus buying a $200,000 home 20 years ago. That's a difference, right? Because it's a bigger number.
Right. Big time. 100%.
But people are making more money than they were 20 years ago too, right?
Correct.
So, and if I could provide any form, of advice for buyers is to kind of reiterate, making sure your financial house is in order. And if you really want that home, there is a way to get you a home. And at the end of the day, owning real estate is one of the greatest gifts that we have in order to build generational wealth. And the thing that I stress with my first-time home buyers is, if you can get into that first home, there is an opportunity for you to build wealth, and also build wealth not just for you, but for your children, your children's children, and the ability to build generational wealth that is unmatched by anything else that's available to us.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I echo the same sentiments, in that, real estate as a financial vehicle and financial tool, I think is unbeaten. I think it's one thing that it's generally the biggest purchase in most people's lives. But I
Yeah,
also think it's the biggest investment in a lot of people's lives too.
it
And as
is
you mentioned, things like generational wealth and building things like that, I think it's the paramount cornerstone, to build financial stability and things like that. So,
for sure.
well, I'm glad that we got to get together today. I
Me
appreciate
too.
your time today, Phil.
Of course, Nick.
Looking forward to
Anytime.
working with you the rest of the year.
I look forward to that as well, and have a great day and a wonderful weekend.
Thanks so much, Phil. Have a good one.
Take care.